got exchanges, we got 4 different countries, 5 different countries, and we've all been in the space combined about 50 plus years. And that's fact when you hear about what's about to be said from each respective country's regulation, if they're working toward it. Some are just working in the digital world, period. Some are choosing to be here in Dubai for a reason. There's a lot more people on this side. So look this way. And the only thing I'm going to say today is we're just going to bring a little bit of energy because it's not so energetic today. You're here, you made it, there's a reason why you came, and now you get to sit for about 30 some minutes of the regulatory talks. So I'm going to let our friends introduce ourselves. My name is Kevin Soltani from Jima Group, CEO, co-founder there, as well as Orthogonal Global Group. We're listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange. We like to say that we offer a solution that if you want to get into Web3 assets and traditional or otherwise, that you can either go invest in crypto, Bitcoin, otherwise. I'm a maxi kind of on that side, so you can kill me later. Or you can invest in the ETF, which doesn't allow you to have any skin in the game. Or you can look to companies like some of the people here on stage or ours that were listed on regulated markets, probably the most regulated, as in stock exchanges. And so now we've proven our audits, which most people in crypto can't do. And I think that's a beautiful thing when we're talking about such a sensitive topic. So let's go down the line and then we'll get into it.
Thanks, Kevin. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Nikhil Joshi. I'm the COO of Emergo. If you're familiar with the Cardano blockchain, then you may be familiar with the fact there's 3 co-founding entities. Emergo is the commercial co-founding entity of Cardano, which means that we either sell our own products and services on the blockchain, such as a tokenization platform, education, or we are helping to bring external capital into the ecosystem, or we're looking for interoperability plays to help accrete the value of the Cardano ecosystem overall. My background is mainly traditional banking. I was in investment banking. From my accent, you can tell, in the UK for a very long time. We're now based in Singapore. And I did a lot of advocacy with going toe-to-toe with European regulators on particular parts of regulation wearing a banking hat. So I know this quite well. And I like rolling my sleeves up for this sort of thing, so I'm looking forward to it.
The FCA is a mother. They are very, very, very strong in what they do. Strong, I use loosely. So if you made it out of that world and into this world, there must be a reason. So we're going to hear about it soon. Okay. Joining us, finally made it through the rain, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Hello, my name is Łukasz Żeligowski. I'm co-founder and CEO of Kanga Exchange. We are located in Poland. So Poland is part of the European Union, so maybe I will represent that part too. However, the Kanga is available globally, and one of the biggest advantage of Kanga is that we've got the biggest network of physical points where you can buy or sell crypto for cash. We've got 1,500 points around the world, so this is something special about us. And my background is IT. I'm a developer. This is what I do since I was 10. So I was forced to be a manager. I prefer to be a developer, but yeah, sometimes you have to do what you have to.
Yeah, hi, happy to be here. So my name is Martin Špuķe, and I'm Chief Legal Officer of Gravity Team. Gravity Team is a trading firm, crypto market making firm. So we do quantitative high-frequency trading. We help with liquidity with exchanges and various crypto projects. So that's one thing that I do. And my other role is I'm a board member of Latvian Blockchain Association. And Latvia is also a part of EU, and we're trying to push Latvian regulators and state institutions and government to see the potential of blockchain, of Web3, and kind of my goal is to make Latvia a Web3 kind of hub, crypto hub in the EU. And given that MiCA is coming up, the upcoming regulation in the EU, we see a big potential in that, and probably we'll talk a bit in detail later about this.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Florent Ducommun. I'm an attorney and partner at a law firm called Bonnard Lawson International Law Firm. We have offices in Switzerland. Main offices are in Switzerland, actually. We have offices also in Dubai and in Paris. And basically, I've been in the tech advising companies since 15 years, building up a lot of blockchain companies, foundations in Switzerland, in the Swiss crypto valley. And yeah, I'm also hands-on because I operate staking company, so I know exactly the technicalities of most of the protocols by operating nodes on some L1 protocols. So I have legal expertise and also understand quite well the tech behind the blockchain.
All right, so when I said we had 5 different countries, I think it's important because in each country, in each continent now, there's very little regulation, but some are better than others. We're in a country where arguably it's the most regulated as it pertains to some things to get done quicker. Other countries maybe have a more foundational stability, like the Singapores and the Switzerlands. I want to talk about all of those individually, but starting with a country where you guys want to be the leader. You said the Latvian Blockchain Association is working on that. You want to lead the framework. You want to kind of bridge the gap for the disparity so that if one day, maybe just for now, EU can look to something, they might look to what your framework is doing in MiCAS. So for those not familiar with MiCAS, tell us a little bit about that and your work with the Latvian side if you're going to win EU, because we've seen what Switzerland can do, and your counterpart to your right can answer that after, because it does come with a bit of trust. It does come with a bit of branding that Latvia doesn't have. And then on the other side of the world, in EU now building that brand and that trust, Singapore has already done that too. So we have these kind of conflicting disparities. Tell us how you're going to dominate EU's framework and if it's going to be the winner and how.
Sure. Happy to talk about this. So MiCA is short from the regulation of markets in crypto assets. The new regulation that will come into force by the end of this year and regulate the field of crypto in whole European Union. Currently, I wouldn't say that there is a clear leader in the EU who would be like this already established crypto hub. There are some countries that want to do that, but I think the place is still vacant because of course there are Singapore and there are Switzerland and there is Dubai and places where you can establish your crypto company, but the EU will be kind of a bit closed garden, kind of closed club. To be able to operate in the EU, you still will have to have a license in one of the member countries. And Latvia, being a small and nimble country, I think we can definitely be a place to set up your crypto business in EU and operate throughout the whole block. And we, from the Latvian Blockchain Association, have been pushing that for a couple of years already. We have a great relationship with regulator, with ministries, with all the stakeholders in the country. And actually, if some of you are going to Token 2049, we have a booth there from the investment agency of Latvia, where we can tell all about this in greater detail.
So you mentioned something I think it's very important actually, is the nimbleness, right? The ability to maybe pivot quicker, the idea that if EU is going to look at someone, you need to go through trial and error, you need to fail, you need to succeed. But I think the brand factor of what these other countries are doing is about trust. It's not just about marketing of the brand, and it's about trust. So what is Switzerland doing, in your opinion, that's going to build off of that trust that's been happening for now hundreds of years, and more recent times after World War II is probably the leader in when we talk about branding and trust of the system. And because I know your work is happening a lot in Bitcoin, and a lot of the stuff that's going to be happening in L2s. I'm from America, right? I have offices here for the last 8 years, which is great. Vara and ADGM are doing fantastic work, but still Americans have a lot closer of a relationship with Switzerland. But when it comes to Bitcoin, Bitcoin staking, Bitcoin DeFi, which is coming, it's coming around the corner, and it will be the most opportunistic, in my opinion, open door opportunity for this one sector of the industry, and the floodgates will open. But before the floodgates can open, What are you guys doing in Switzerland? How are you answering some of those things so that it's not going to be just constantly classified as a security?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the trust in the Swiss banking system and financial system is quite high, and there's a reason for this. The Swiss regulator has always taken a risk-based approach, a quite pragmatic approach to regulating crypto. Was the first regulator in the world to classify actually the tokens, and Ethereum Foundation came to Switzerland for a reason, because they could speak to the regulator and have a safe place. We speak a lot about sandboxes and reg hubs here in the UAE. Actually, what the regulator did was exactly that, right? Discussing and setting up the basis. So now it continues to be regulated like that, taking topics after topics, having an approach on staking recently, first regulator in the world that
Huge.
took a stance on staking, saying non-custodial staking is actually, for now, something that you can do in Switzerland. If you segregate...
To your knowledge, is that the first place and only right now
Yeah,
that is fully regulated for staking
it's well,
legally
I would say
to offer it to retail side?
Yeah, that's the first regulator that took a position on it. It's not a law; it's a guidance. So it's not, that we changed the law. We did. I think in Switzerland things were done quite smartly because the legal framework has not been amended with new laws. We just took the existing one and considered this technology as neutral and adapted the legal framework for tokenizing securities, the legal framework for issuing tokens, the legal framework. Now the regulator is speaking about regulating DeFi. It's a big topic now with the SEC coming after Uniswap, which is actually a Swiss association. And the position of the regulator is to say, well, basically we need to take this case that's not going to apply necessarily to all DeFi protocols. We need to look for jurisdictional integrity. Right. Where is it based? Because as a regulator, that's something that is important to consider. You don't have worldwide jurisdiction, right? It's not universal jurisdiction. It's not something that is in line with liberal democracies. So who's competent to regulate these type of protocols, which are just code? And I believe now that the Swiss regulator is looking at that and saying it's too early to have a framework. So let's see how it evolves and leave some room for innovation while still protecting consumer interests. That's the approach.
So that's interesting, right? So when you're thinking about setting up your company, we're all here in Dubai. Not a lot of us maybe live here or have set up here, but you're here because you've heard of the buzz, and a lot of Web3 companies, a lot of exchanges are coming here. Some of the biggest names are now getting their VARA licenses in Dubai, and ADGM a little slower, but a lot more regulated at the big boy table, as we say. You come from a completely different world, which you've been through all of this in TradFi, right? You've been through this in your past life. You've heard two different kind of countries' perspectives. I know you're based in Singapore, not necessarily licensed and all of that, but maybe you can give us a little hint about Singapore and your past life, about your TradFi experience and how we got here, the advocacies and regulators that you had to see, those meetings that you've had, are they similar to what you're talking about now in crypto? Is it completely different? And how can we bridge the gap?
Sure. So my high level comment is that in traditional finance world, the regulation and the regulators have never been able to keep up with the speed that financial product innovation has moved in that traditional space. So it's always been a square peg, round hole type of approach. And oftentimes that means that the regulators have applied an outcome that results in throwing the baby out with the bathwater, i.e. the good stuff is thrown out as well as the bad stuff that they're going after. That plays in here, except now this is on steroids, because this technology can move at 1 million, miles per hour quicker than the traditional space does. So it just compounds the issue. Putting a regional lens on it, I think the regional Southeast Asian, Far East Asian regulators have a bit more of a tendency to listen than jump to a conclusion. And so we've seen a bit of a ding-dong between Hong Kong and Singapore, where they've tried to position themselves and, of course, then
Right.
then with Dubai as well. So there's that trio. But going past those three main countries, you even see places like Thailand, which have a much more willingness to learn. And then I think with that willingness to learn comes this ability to understand, okay, there is this, speculation on an asset, and we're not dead keen on retail, especially blowing themselves up by doing some funky derivatives trading on it. But actually, there is this real utility on the blockchain itself. Now, on a public blockchain, you can't really separate the blockchain and the crypto. You need that crypto to act as a validator. But to simply jump to this is an asset class where people are going to blow themselves up does disservice to all the cool stuff that can actually happen in this space. So to answer your question, I say, broadly speaking, Asia is much more front-footed in my mind, right, than certainly the US as the other end of the scale. And equally, we've seen regulators who have initially been hesitant, now actually reversing themselves. So Japan's a good example of this, right? So they're bringing out, or slightly reversing tax regulation. They're looking at DAO laws, right, which is pretty cool, right, in terms of how quickly they're doing that U-turn from their original position.
I mean, it's you brought up a good example in Japan. If you haven't heard about what they're doing, and I'm sure you know about what has happened in the last 40 years, and their new iteration of economy or economics hasn't changed much, but if they're going to implement this stuff for digital assets, digital currencies through a DAO structure, that's pretty incredible, because the power of DAOs are pretty amazing if done right. And when a country can adopt that for their people and put a regulatory framework around it, they become that much more empowered and powerful.
Yeah, and I think if you look at these sorts of regions where the country, the economy has real incentive to leapfrog, should we say, more developed countries into providing a real tangible utility that drives their economy forward, right? And I don't mean economy just in the sense of, oh, here's a cryptocurrency that's now going to go up 10x or whatever. I mean real, the new trade of the future.
You said something, and it's important. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The idea that not everything should be thrown out, and we should try to micro focus into some of the good stuff. And instead of just dismissing everything all at once and saying it's all bad, it's all a security, it's all not working because of your fear that what might have happened or will happen to the retail market is a mistake. And that's where innovation dies, right? That's where innovation tends to die in all industries. From the Polish perspective, I know you guys are an exchange. I know not regulated there. What's the idea from the fifth country now that we've heard about? Because, not everyone here is going to set up here, but can you convince fighting argument for what your exchange is doing in your regulated markets or otherwise?
Yeah. First of all, I will not represent the Poland point of view.
You're just there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I rather.
If you do have an affinity to one, we got Singapore, which is a great one. We have UAE and obviously Switzerland.
Yeah.
And we've heard from
the EU is very strange. Let's say organization, too many bureaucrats, too many regulations, too many different kind of things what you have to do, and it's something what is killing the innovation. And we can really say that EU is no longer innovative at all because it was killed totally. And the second statement which I want to say is that in Kanga we believe that freedom is something given to every person, and it cannot be taken away. So we think that freedom is something basic thing, and we cannot forget about this. And all the regulations are against freedom. Really, they are against freedom. They are telling that they are trying to protect us, but hey, give me one example how they protect us. I know a lot in Poland. We've got a lot of bad things happen to people, to the retail, and the regulator was not able to control the market, let's say, traditional market. It's really something, what happens. The same is in States. Is it working? No. So let's start thinking, why do we need any regulations in crypto? Because in my opinion, the best regulation is no regulation. We don't need them. The people are thinking, they've got their wisdom and they can protect themselves against all the bad stuff. and there is no possibility that any officer from the regulator can protect me against anything.
But you know, and he mentioned this, and I think it's important. So I get the decentralization of all of this. I've been in this industry for 12 years. I'm the maxiest person that's non-technical in the room, right? But can anything truly be decentralized in this world? And talking about the first world specifically, third world possibly because of the obvious. But in the first world, when we're talking about a true decentralized autonomous organization, if there's no framework around it, right, you got a really rough economy in Japan that works. But if without the framework, it's just maybe turned into chaos again. So can anything truly be decentralized? Just a quick answer. I want to hear from everyone on this. So quickly, 30 seconds on each.
I believe yes.
You believe yes? Simple as that.
That's simple like that.
You trust humans to govern themselves financially.
Yeah, let's talk a little about Switzerland, for example, because this is a very good example. Do you remember how many pages got the banking law on the beginning, when the Switzerland became a big country in the bank industry? It was very small. Right now, we've got tons of the pages, really, and it's not better. Any new page for the regulation makes it more complicated and, in my opinion, bad. Okay, from our perspective, the MiCA is good. We are big enough to work it out and pay to the lawyers. The lawyers are winning, of course, as always.
There's only two people making money in crypto: event organizers and lawyers. That's fact, especially here in Dubai. Like really making money. So thank you. There you go.
Short story. Do you know what does it mean that you see a head of the lawyer above the ground? Too less sand. You need more sand to cover it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry,
thank
I know.
you.
Joking. So no.
Oh yeah, we got a lawyer. We got
I
a
like
lawyer,
this
and he's
panel.
Swiss too.
I like
so you're
this
really
panel.
just.
Can-
Quickly.
So I think you described, Kevin, something that exists, which is fully decentralized. Is called Bitcoin,
Yep.
and I think that's
Yep.
why we're all here, right?
now.
In the beginning, but indeed, there's no organization behind Bitcoin, and what happened is that when some protocols were launched in a centralized way, then that became regulated because somehow there was an issuer of the coin, so you could regulate. But now what actually is coming out of this MiCA regulation in the EU is that the only way to issue a currency, a cryptocurrency, should go back to the basics, using actually a network, node operators, people that mine the cryptocurrency. This is not something that you can stop, but if you want to do that, then that means all the node network must be organized in a distributed way. And we worked on what we call the distributed governance framework, which is actually a charter, like very inspired from the Swiss democracy, where you have a charter that the community of node operators must adopt. And then this community of node operators will be able to vote to decide what's the level of
100%.
the rewards. So it's a fully, decentralized framework with governance body, mediation body, and actually that's a new way to organize human behavior, with always the risk of having that taken over by some.
Since the beginning of crypto, Bitcoin, operators have always been the winner, or at least the front line, the miners, the nodes, right? And so if we can reiterate that with the regulatory bodies giving us the framework to allow us to further that, I think it's amazing. I want to hear from the next two. Can it be, Nikhil, to decentralization? You said something earlier I want to also bring up, speculation on asset classes versus blockchain tech perspective. These are not the same, and yet they're being coupled again. So how are we going to decentralize any one part of our industry? And right now, DeFi is a massive topic. Bitcoin DeFi specifically is coming up. L2s on Bitcoin are extremely expensive and difficult, but they are maybe the answer to what we're looking for staking and otherwise. But if they're going to be coupled up and called a security and thrown out, like you said, with the bathwater, then what are we doing here? What are we innovating?
I think it's an education point. right? So I actually disagree with the decentralization point. I don't think we can be, because the next question would be, right, so whose cloud services are you using? Just as an example, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
also,
yeah.
and this is a bit of a fluffy answer, right? But like outside the people in this room, who we're all kind of on the same page, I think, right, in terms of how much we understand and what we think about this space, broadly speaking. But outside this room, the average person on the street, right, Web3, crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin, AI, all of this doesn't mean much, right? And all of that terminology gets conflated. So when we're talking about a word like decentralization, actually there's a spread on the definition of decentralization. And and the whole basis of it is on a bit of a philosophical, economical spread as well. So maybe you said earlier, we all believe in the same thing. Actually, no, if we took a poll here, I bet you there are Bitcoin maxis. There are people who are like, yeah, actually some of this tech could do some cool stuff in TradFi space, like, you know, sort out some settlement noise. That's a much more mundane use case. It's a much more mundane thing to be talking about.
Mundane things in finance tend to work and tend to make a lot of money.
Sure,
Right?
right? Yeah,
Like-
but I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm just saying
No, no,
that
I agree with you.
But as a fact, I bet you there's a bit of a spread just within this room in terms of what people think and what they want to get out of this space.
Right.
So I think, you know, to try and bring it to a bit more of a tangible, practical answer to what you're saying, I think a lot of it starts with getting that level of awareness and education on what are we actually talking about, and being very specific about the facet of, or facets plural, that underpin
Right.
blockchain. And then we can get to the conversation about, okay, there is a thing called crypto, right? And now that might be a layer one coin. It may be a token that's built on, you know, on a layer two, for example. And you can take a punt on it, and that's fine. That may well have its place. I also completely disagree that everyone is capable of taking care of themselves. I think there should be regulation. I don't think there should be regulation that's disproportionate to the problem they're trying to solve. But there are people or non-people perhaps that need protecting, right? Now, I think what we'd probably agree with is what we want is a level playing field across the world. So some jurisdictions may be more advanced. Ultimately, we as players in this space just want a level playing field, so there's no competitive disadvantage, and we just know how to navigate the rules.
Before
The question always is who should be protected? How we can measure? Can I make my own decision and let's say you not, because what? Because of, I don't know, IQ or the level of the education, or what? What's the distinction?
I agree that definition needs to be unpacked. In Singapore, there is the term accredited investor, which means you've got an annual income of 300K or 2 million of net assets. I guarantee you, I know 100 people who are idiots and they satisfy that requirement.
Yeah, that's why I said accredited investor status
exactly.
is bullshit at this point, because in the new world of digital assets, we're going to have hundreds of thousands accredited, but they're not qualified. So what does that mean? Before we end, I want to hear Martin. True decentralization, not thoughts there. But before that, watch the room. Does anybody truly believe that anything in our industry currently, without regulation, can be truly decentralized? Hands up for yes. Right. So 10%, right? 15%
Yeah.
at max.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. I would say potentially impossible, because even if you cannot regulate the protocol or the decentralized part of it, you regulators still will go after the gatekeepers, the banks, the exchanges, all the centralized stuff that is around that, and that's usually probably, unfortunately, enough to kind of regulate the decentralized part in quite an efficient way. So yeah, that's about that. About people being protected, just to add on that, I actually agree that maybe protected is not the right word, but people need to be informed. They need to take informed decisions. And in crypto space, I would say that there is often a lack of information, and if regulation specifically targets the part of the information that people are provided, so they can decide whether they want to invest in this project, whether they want to buy this token, and so on. That's actually a beneficial thing for the market, I would say.
So quickly, time's up, but they took 5 minutes from us, so I'm going to take it back. thoughts there, and then go.
Yeah, okay. I just want to say I agree
thoughts.
completely. The education is a basic thing. And right
Yeah.
now, in about economy, the education around the people is really very low. The people don't understand interest rates. They don't understand credits. They don't understand how the money is created. They don't know it. And this is where the regulator should do. This is what they do. And in Poland, I saw only the advertisement from the regulator that you are living in the bubble if you believe in Bitcoin. Yeah, so this is opposite to education. Okay,
Florian, final thoughts on decentralization on your side, coming from the most centralized place in the world. It works.
No,
it works.
Yeah, maybe just final thoughts. You have different approaches to regulation. In liberal democracies, the principle is that anything that is not forbidden is actually something that is allowed, right? So the rule of law states that the regulators cannot go everywhere and regulate everything. If it's not there in the law, they cannot touch it. And that's what our democracies in Western countries have been built on. And that's not what I see happening in the US because of this large definition of how we test and securities. They try to regulate things which are not covered by actually the law. And this is a problem, in my opinion, and I'm not that liberal as my colleague, but I would say we still have to go back to the basics, saying, well, the regulators can regulate what is ruled, and what the parliament has said, you have to rule to protect people, and sometimes they go above this jurisdiction, and they go like on a global level, which is not, in my opinion, acceptable. Another approach is what the UAE took, the stance that the UAE took, is say, well, everything that is not allowed is not permitted. And you need a license for this, you need a license for that's a fair approach.
Yeah.
It's been built also as a marketing tool to attract companies. But regulation in itself is not the purpose. The purpose of regulation is protecting people. And I believe this technology has a lot more advantages than what we want to use it for protecting people, like clearing settlement. You don't need to have centralized clearing settlement. You don't need to have intermediaries for trading. There's a lot of advantages which are much broader than what the regulator come in and try to actually hinder innovation sometimes.
Yeah.
And on decentralization, the final thought, I believe we need to have a system where it's one person, one vote, and not based on the tokens that people hold. Otherwise, that's the problem with proof of stake. The big ones will always govern and make sure that the governance is in their favor, right? That's the problem we see already in our current economies. So I believe we can have a true decentralized system, but that should go back to the freedom of individual and one person, one vote. And that is a way to have a direct democracy for governing the technology.
In every single other market, financial of the world, these are highly sophisticated products. You add the word crypto in there and there's no rules. Why I mean that is because in the stock markets of all of our countries, in order to sell those products, you need to be a highly sophisticated, licensed securities trader, analyst, lawyer, or otherwise. Licensed, series anything in America, 67s, 57, 63, 65, 66. These are all licenses I had just to touch the products in our industries. Same with this gentleman and working with the FCA. Same with you in Switzerland for sure. We're just named differently. So one word, we're super over time. If you were going to be regulated and apply for that first license, one word, which country? Period. One word. No why. One word. I'll start. For now, UAE, right? 100%. I know I have to get in line. And Vara is a super long line. And ADGM even longer. It's going to be difficult and expensive. For now, they're winning. And that's my vote.
Well, Switzerland, obviously.
Yeah. That's my second vote.
Yeah.
One word.
Latvia.
Come on. I know you
Okay.
believe in that,
Yeah. I
Not
cannot
today.
say otherwise. But yeah,
One word, one word.
if seriously, then it would depend probably also on the type of the business that I was planning to do.
True.
But yeah, it would be probably UAE, Switzerland, Singapore. There are other examples as well.
Congo's going where? If I know super
okay.
decentralized, you hate this thing, but one word, what country?
I would say something special. No Poland, no European Union for sure, because they are dead about innovation. But think about small countries, small jurisdictions where there is freedom. Let's think about El Salvador. Let's think about St. Lucia. Think about some really small countries where there is still the government is not far away from the people. They are very close, and this is really something important. In Europe, I would say that the people from the government and the regulators, they are living in the bubble, in the other world. They really don't even know how the people are living, and this is crazy.
Don't worry, Switzerland. He's not talking about you.
No.
You're not. You're
No,
not
we're
in
not
Europe.
in the
Don't
EU.
cringe over there. And UK is lost cause.
So think about something simple.
Remember, I have offices in Dubai and in Switzerland.
I
I
know.
still go for Switzerland, for sure.
We came back. You got to have a word.
I'll go with Hong Kong right now.
Yeah, no, I like that answer because everyone's heard about the ETF and the activity and speed. Hong Kong is willing to take a risk for Asia. And I'm going to put my bet. I just said UAE if I'm going to do today. But long term, I'm putting my money in Asia, 1,000%. I'm moving there myself. But I'm thinking, I see the next 20 years, that's going to be my winner. We're super over time. Thank you guys so much. We tried to keep the energy on a very tough topic and regulations. Talk to these very smart gentlemen on stage and connect with us.